We're bringing them right on stage. We're moving into a panel with Kunle from 2X eCommerce. We've got Dave from Constant Contact and Chris from Shopify. Kunle, you're leading the team here. I'm just going to step away and let you guys introduce yourselves.
That was quick. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Derek. Hey, Dave. Hey, Chris. How you doing?
Hey, Kunle. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. I'm going to take this up like a podcast, like I normally do a podcast. So normally I'll just introduce. So I'll just say, welcome to the future of e-commerce marketing. It's an expert panel. I'm joined by Dave Charest. He's the director of content marketing at Constant Contact. If you don't know Constant Contact, they're an ESP. And then Chris Snyder from Shopify. He's the senior community manager at Shopify. Could you guys please take a quick few seconds to just introduce yourselves? I've just given you a quick intro there.
Sure. So yeah, sure. Thanks, Kunle. As mentioned, Dave Schruss, Director of Content Marketing at Constant Contact. I have been in this industry, I guess, since 2006 is when I got started here. I've been with Constant Contact going on, I guess September will be 10 years I've been with the company. And so really primarily focused on, obviously, all things kind of online marketing with a particular focus on email and helping small businesses across various industries, including nonprofits, we currently have a new offering specifically for e-commerce folks that I'm very excited about. And really something interesting in the email space that we probably haven't seen or hasn't been accessible to people in a long time. So excited about that.
Absolutely. We'll jump into the details as we progress. And Chris?
Yeah, so my name is Chris Snyder, senior community manager at Shopify based out of Los Angeles. Essentially, my role is to make sure that anyone who needs the resources to help their business or get started with entrepreneurship, they get them. And sometimes, marketing fails and it doesn't reach equally across the board. So my role is to really reach into communities, work with chambers of commerce, governments, community organizations to make sure everyone gets the resources they need.
Brilliant. You both are household names, and we're just going to jump right into the topic today, which is really the evolution and the future of e-commerce marketing. I'm going to start out with you, Dave.
Sure.
Pretty much from an email perspective, we started, back in the days with newsletters, and then automations come and several other advancements in email, have sort of made it a very sophisticated but yet effective, marketing channel. Could you just take us through the evolution of email marketing? We'll go through various key channels over this conversation, but let's start out with email marketing. Over to you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I think what's interesting is, as you mentioned, right, you talked with newsletters, and that's really where this kind of all started, right? We've taken that kind of those bigger brands have access to this technology that brought it to smaller companies, and newsletters is where a lot of people start. And I think what's interesting is that no matter where you are on the chain of this evolution, or what stage you're at, or what you're doing personally, they're all good, right? They all work. We know email is an effective channel to drive sales and help you communicate with your customers. So we started with newsletters, and I would say that's where somebody is just, maybe sending something once a month, maybe a couple times a month, maybe a little bit more frequently when we're talking about the e-commerce space, but they're generally just sending that to their whole list, right? We're not doing a lot of segmentation or doing anything there. I think in the second stage, right, we call that good, right? Better is when we start to think about, all right, who are our customers? What are some ways that we can think about using some like demographic information or interests, things like that, to start to segment them, right? Break those people into smaller lists and start to send more targeted messaging rather than to everyone, but to speak to specific things that people within the segments might need. And that's where we might also start to think about doing some small pieces of automation, right? That's where you were thinking about doing things like maybe birthday and anniversary reminders, welcome emails, things like that, but nothing too advanced. And maybe you might start getting into some email series, for example, and thinking about who those groups are, and maybe helping somebody with, like, maybe they just purchased a product and you're going to send a series of emails to help them get the most out of that product, right? And continue to cement those relationships with people. Then I think what if we talk about getting to the best level, right, I think that's where you really start to dig into the data that's available to you. I mean, I think we could probably all agree that there's not a shortage of data out there today, right? And I think what really it boils down to is how do you use it, right? Because it's only as good as what you can do with it and as good as the data actually is to you. And so I think that's the problem, is that we have so much and we just really can't do anything with it. And I think this is where either manually, right, you start to get in and maybe do a little bit more so you can be a little bit more advanced and understand your customers a little better, get more targeted, and kind of start to live into that idea of, right, we always talk about this idea of sending the right message to the right people at the right time. Right. So you start to get closer to living into that. I think where this evolution has taken us now is with the whole introduction of, when you start thinking about, artificial intelligence, and you start thinking about predictive analytics and how that actually can go in and start looking at the data that you have, really start analyzing it in a way that likely, like as just like a human, it's not possible for you to do, right? Because you don't have enough time in the day. And it takes that data and can start predicting and actually living into, as I just mentioned, sending the right messages to the right people at the right times. Now what you can actually live into is this idea of really personalizing at an individual contact level. And that means sending the right message to the right person at the right time, which is a whole different ballgame. And so when you start thinking about, I often describe it as the difference between, in those first two stages, we're really playing checkers. But when we get to this last stage here, we're talking about playing chess. And so we start to think about it a little bit differently too, right? Where instead of thinking of segments of people, we're thinking of stages, right? Where people may be in their life cycle. And then what we're doing is we're having the play, so to speak, right, set up in the background so that when somebody hits a stage, that individual contact, we have the plays ready to go, and we're saying like, oh, this person's ready to buy, I'm going to send them an offer. This person's new to my brand, I'm going to send some more value add content to get them to understand who the business is and maybe help them do something, or present something that's not a hard sell or something like that. And so I think that's what's actually really exciting to me now, because like now you have this ability to actually not have to invest a lot of time, because the AI is analyzing the data for you, predicting things that are going to happen and making the best case recommendation, and then tagging on automation that actually, sends that stuff out for you. So that's where I think we're going and where we're at this particular.
That's super interesting. So it just sounds to me like personalization seems to be the focus right now with email marketing, aided by AI, predictive analytics, and probably predictive segmentation. And it also sounds to me like marketers still need to sort of have all their pieces on the table, which is the hard work, by the way. And from the sounds of things, the AI or your AI algorithms you've built out would select the right message based on behaviors of your prospects or your customers, and it just matches it all the way, learns from lower engagement, and then improves exactly. In layman terms, right? Okay.
Yep. Exactly.
Interesting. Okay. So email is one of several channels in our stack, in our marketing stack. And this question is to Chris. How do we from a Shopify standpoint just fight this emerging problem of coordinating essentially an omni-channel strategy? We're talking about social selling, we're talking about marketplace selling. Besides that, the core actions, performance marketing, email. Chris, what is it from a Shopify or from your perspective?
Well, sadly, I think a lot of people got into omni-channel because of COVID. And they didn't really have a strategy. They had to pivot quickly. They got started into omnichannel without a plan. And now they're finding themselves with all these kind of disjointed pieces. And they're really struggling to figure out how to bring it all together, how it all makes sense. Their focus really needs to be on convergence and figuring out how to guide their customers through this tailored multi-channel journey that's really data-based. It's based on the customer data. That should be their goal. That first step's going to have to be to take a good hard look at what pieces they have in place and what data is being gathered from each touch point, and start mapping out that journey. That's really where it has to start. I think there's some great tools out there that'll help with this, but I think so many people don't even understand what they're collecting, where they're collecting it from. They don't know, they might have email marketing, but truthfully, they just because they sent out a newsletter 3 times in the last 9 months, they really don't have an omni-channel email marketing strategy in place. So it's really stepping back, 10 feet and taking a good, hard, honest look at what they have in place first.
Mm-hmm. So the heart of this all seems to be the customer journey, and we create the customer journey, via the channels we're active in, by the channels we communicate with. Do you have any tools that, or do you have any tool recommendations that, essentially help us, tell a better, gives a better picture really on the customer journey?
Yeah, I mean, tracking everything is tricky for sure. It's always been one of the challenges, and the more you have going on, of course, the more you scale, the larger you are, the tougher it is. Really spending a lot of time reviewing analytics and data, which, sadly, not enough business owners invest enough time really going through the data on the regular would be a good place to start. There's great tools out there like Rockerbox that can really give you a good, honest, clear attribution model across all your channels.
Yeah.
That's always the biggest challenge, right? Is attribution with everything. But a lot of people are new to it, and they're just trying to figure out where to get started and how to get started. For that, it's just good old-fashioned performance metrics. Product sales over time, customer satisfaction, brand awareness, getting comfy with Google Analytics and your built-in analytics, and kind of starting to build out that basic attribution model.
It makes a lot of sense. This is like the 5th time I'm hearing about, Rockerbox in the last month or so. So, there's certainly something, there worth checking out. Okay, let's talk about data. At the moment, the giants, out there are, there's a duel. You have iOS on the one hand, you have Facebook on the other hand, and there's a lot of collateral damage, we have to say, in the rest of the market. A lot of performance marketers are complaining that the work is harder. And the email front, from iOS, the next iOS 15 is going to stop, tracking, open rates and on the mail app from Apple. So Apple is all about privacy, and Facebook, interestingly, is all about, making things a bit more open. This takes us to like the death of, third-party data, which pretty much are pixels, your pixels for your analytics, your pixels for your Facebook, just pixels essentially. And we're seeing a movement towards like, first-party data, which is, data you get on your Shopify, right? But, lately there's been a lot of conversation around zero-party data. With zero, should we define zero-party data? Does anybody want to define it, Dave, Chris?
I'll take a stab. How's that?
Go for it.
So I think we're talking about zero-party data, and what we're talking about is when customers are freely giving you or making the point to give you information, right? They want to give you data because they want to. They expect certain things from you. I think I think I've seen numerous surveys where people expect brands to understand who they are, what they want, and know all of that. And I think that's where, frankly, a lot of brands are missing the boat, right? And I think that's where. That's what it is. It's really giving them the opportunity to say, I'm interested in this stuff, and this is the stuff I want you to know about me, so I can expect to get better pitches and information from you as a brand.
That's a great way to put it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Dave. I love this. It's self-reliance. It's future-proofing your business against a cookieless future or GDPR or whatever it might be. It's a great thing.
Exactly.
I think just to add to that, right? I think this is the age-old kind of story that I think, since back in the day, right, when we're talking about Facebook telling businesses to grow their, set up your Facebook page and make your business there, and then charging them ads to reach that audience, right? I think it's this age-old thing where do as much as you can to get that first party information and have that so you're in control, right? All of these platforms, everything's great for you to reach new people and do things, but they make one change, and if you're relying on them to do something, then what, right? And it's really this whole case for owning that customer information so you can make those decisions and do stuff with it. So
exactly. So in the email space, there is just profile enrichment, where they manage the preferences, kind of like when you're going shopping, for instance, like fashion shopping, just to identify yourself as a male or female, or whether you're shopping for your children. And then in the performance side, there's more the quizzes, which is where a lot of attention is. So a partner or sponsor of e-commerce day, Octane AI, is leading the conversation, around, or the thought leadership around, zero party data, because with quizzes you could get a lot of preferences, customer preferences from potential customers and existing customers, off the bat of back of an overlay on your website. My question to either of you is, like, what's the right question to ask? To just ensure that you're not you're optimally, getting data, there are no drop-offs, and you have enough information to cleverly, personalize, messaging and suggestions to customers. Who wants to start? Dave, do you want to go for it?
Sure. So I mean, I think this is right. The answer for any of these questions, really, and a lot of times, is really, it depends on the business, right? And it depends on what's important to your business in order for you to make a better decision about what you're going to do, or come up with a strategy, or understand something about your audience that's going to help you at the end of the day make more money. Because I think, as I mentioned earlier, right, there's no shortage of data. And I think we oftentimes collect it, but then don't know what to do with it, or can't figure out like where to go with it. And I think collecting data for data's sake is probably not the best way to go, because it just creates, I think, noise, right, when you can focus on things. And so I think it depends on the business. And I think, but there are things that you want to try to figure out, right? You want to know what their interests are in relation to your products, right? So if we were to give an example of, like, let's say you sell pet supplies, right? Like, obviously you're going to want to know what types of pets do people have, right? What are the size of those animals? Like, things like that, right? So that you can start to send information, because, like, fish food coupons don't make a lot of sense for a cat owner, right? It's like simple things like that you want to start to understand. So you're not making people feel like this business is just trying to get money from me and doesn't like these aren't of value. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to get to. And so I think it's like, what questions can we ask so that we're able to provide more value to our customers? I think if you attack it that way, and not just like, how do we make more money? Like, because I think ultimately it leads to that, but it does so in a better way. And I think if you keep that front and center, you'll start to lead yourself down the right path to figure out what those questions are.
You're spot on. Value is where it's at. What about tools? I mentioned Octane AI. What other tools are there? To read for first and zero party data, really.
There are tons, and I'm not terribly familiar with a lot of them. There are a ton in the Shopify App Store. The one concern I would have is to make sure that you're being strategic with the information you're trying to collect, but also in terms of like a site design and a customer flow, and it's organic, it feels natural in the user's experience. It's branded. It doesn't feel like something that's tacked on. And that's something I think, like we've seen with pop-ups, email collection pop-ups. Sometimes they're just kind of thrown in as an afterthought. It doesn't get a great response. It's just there as kind of, because it should be there, but they really haven't created it as part of the journey. It isn't really strategic. It doesn't really fit in. So it doesn't really feel natural and organic. And then, of course, you don't really get the response you want out of it anyhow. There are tons of apps in the App Store, but each one has a bit of a different take in it. So I would do some research in terms of what kind of data you're trying to collect. How many questions are you trying to have? Clowns and balloons and prizes and games? Or are you trying to have something that's a little more tactful and it's going to slide in from the side and that kind of thing?
Yeah, design experience is absolutely important. Thank you for that, Chris. Okay, let's swiftly move into the world of AI. And let's talk about what innovations are you seeing in personalization, segmentation, and the AI space. I'll throw that out to Dave, and then Chris, please chime in.
Sure. So I think what AI affords us, right, is that ability, as I kind of mentioned a little earlier, to do the things that you just humanly aren't able to do, and analyze data in a way that makes that process a lot faster for you to do, because I think, like, let's be realistic, right? We're all battling that the concept of time, and wearing whatever hats, whether you have a dedicated marketer on your team or whether you're the owner of the business. There are other things that take priority, and quite frankly, sometimes sending an email out trumps really figuring out what's the best email to send, right? In many instances. And I think where AI comes in is it really adds a whole other marketing brain to what you're doing, so to speak, right? Where you're able to go in, and then it's able to help you with things like at the goal of personalization always, but help you with things like segmentation, right? You can start to look at and say, hey, these are your people that are high value customers. These are the people that are spending a lot of money with you, making multiple purchases, doing things. These are your people that are low value. These are people that are maybe ready to churn because they're not engaging at all with anything that you're doing with them. And it helps you then also start to think about, figuring out what stage those people are, where they're going to. And so you can then make the right product recommendations for individual people without having to do all of that manual segmentation work. Because I think a lot of times, although you can do that, really what we're doing is we're just creating a smaller group of people that we're guessing that this is going to work for them. It's getting you better results, but still not living into that idea of, again, treating each person like an individual and saying, like, hey, Chris is ready for this discount on this particular product because he was on the website browsing and looking at that thing. So I'm going to shoot this out to him and see if I can capture a conversion there, right? And so I think that's really where it's taking you. It's allowing you to get to that next level by capturing sales and uncovering things that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, right? Because you're doing your general things. And this is like a whole new revenue opportunity for you, which I think is pretty exciting.
It's incredible. Chris, please go for it.
I think a lot of businesses they tend to be data rich and information poor. We don't have time. We collect a lot of data, but we just don't have the time to break it all down, or we don't have the skill, anything else. And what AI and machine learning and all these things bring to the table is those additional 2 or 3 or 4 levels of critical thinking and learning and resources to actually put that data into play and make some decisions that we may not even have the knowledge or skill or foresight to take action on. And suddenly, it's able to take our business into a direction that we never would have, probably journeyed into in the next 6 months or the next couple quarters, certainly.
Incredible. Let's talk about social selling, selling on social. And Chris, you're going to be, the next talk actually is your talk around conversational, commerce. With Facebook announcing shopping, Instagram, announcing its priority on commerce, very, very clearly, loud and clear, creators, commerce, and then you have Google shopping, TikTok also, having all of, having the, offering shopping. Is social a new channel? This is to Chris. Is social, a new channel? What are your thoughts?
It's an interesting question. If we think about social media itself, is Facebook a friend or a threat to small business? It's a tough question because sure, it's one of the easiest marketing tools to use and all that kind of thing. But on the other side, what happens if Facebook decides they're going to build an e-commerce platform and you're going to have to be on their platform to market and sell, or else, no small businesses can use Instagram or Facebook? What does that do to, small business? Suddenly that changes the game for everybody. But social selling as a process or a business model or a marketing model, whatever you want to call it, that's not an existential threat or anything like that. It's just the latest term to be used for a relational approach to selling. And let's be honest, selling has always been about people anyhow, right? It's always been about relationships. It's just the newest spin on it. And I think as millennials and Gen Z have continued to really increase their buying power and their kind of influence on marketing, it's just kind of their take on how they want to be marketed to. As a platform, we've had all these integrations with TikTok, Snapchat, WhatsApp, Sprout, Facebook, Instagram, about every other network out there. So as a platform, we're well positioned to continue to be able to kind of live and breathe and grow in that thing. And as long as storytelling and social selling and all that continues to be the trend, we'll be okay there.
Absolutely. Because if you look at the ecosystem in Shopify and look at your breakout brands, the top brands out there, your top 1%, that they all have very strong stories, at heart. And then, great products, obviously, but it all starts with that story, as opposed to the transactional Amazon, Walmart experience, and they have their story in one sense or a message, which makes a lot of sense. Okay, so Dave, what about how does the CRM come to play in social? When you're talking about like social selling, and how would you sort of pipe social through to email to just make a much more congruent system or experience really for customers?
Sure. So I think, one of the ways to look at it, and it's almost going backwards, right? So we're talking a lot about, how AI can help you analyze, find those high value customers. And so typically, right, one of the ways we think about maybe targeting on Facebook or one of those platforms would be thinking about lookalike audiences, right? And so typically what we'll do is we'll take our whole list, upload that, and then try to find more people like that on our list. Mm-hmm. But this new layer of the AI saying like, hey, these are your high value customers, right? So what you can do is focus on, and these are your low value customers, right? So like, let's take the low value people out of the mix. Let's focus on those high value customers and try to create lookalikes from that, right? So we're getting into the cycle where we're not just adding people to add people, but we're adding higher quality people to our list that have more benefit to our brands. And I think that's one of the ways that it's really important to start to think about it. And I think just to add to the conversation before, I think Chris said something that was, interesting, is how people want to be marketed to. And I think that's the big change here when we're talking about social selling, right? Is making sure that your brand is there, and then being telling that story and understanding the story your customers are telling, but being personable and being people. And I think that's the big thing. I think we're the flashy ads. I think a lot of what we're seeing today, right? People are less production value, more realness in things, and that's what people are really responding to. And I think we have to take that into account. I always like to say, like, be the thing people are looking to consume and engage with versus the thing that's interrupting them from doing that. And I think that's a good way to think about it.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay, we can't, not talk about social selling without, talking about TikTok, versus Instagram, or TikTok versus Facebook, or TikTok versus YouTube. TikTok is, the social platform for Gen Z, without a doubt. How do brands, thrive? How should brands sort of, take on social selling with with TikTok in the center, really, with millennials and Gen Z, as the previous speaker alluded to? I will start out with Chris.
I don't think they can be afraid. I think you have to kind of dive into it. First of all, you have to understand what it is. We're in this kind of the glory days, or the heyday of storytelling, where you turn on YouTube and it's become a channel full of vloggers. And now we have this platform that's really custom made for storytelling, right? TikTok. It's organic in a way that others aren't. Things go viral in a way that we haven't really seen in a long time. TikTok offers something that we really haven't seen since as earliest days of YouTube, where the barrier to really get in, the bar to entry, is really low. The high storytelling capability, it's really a DIY kind of thing. That Generation Z, they really see it as their own. I mean, it's evolving a little bit, but it's really a unique kind of segmented audience that's right for marketing too, which makes kind of an easier marketing challenge in some sense. But it's almost prized for being this kind of lo-fi, low budget platform, whereas YouTube's become high production value, big business, big money. With it's grown outside of what it was. It's kind of become this monster that it kind of didn't want to be. I think the big question is, TikTok has the pearl in its hands. What is TikTok going to do with it? Are they going to evolve into a full-fledged marketing machine like a Facebook kind of thing with analytics and, monetize it and all that? Are they going to keep it kind of grassroots and, let it play out organically as it is? That'll be the interesting part. And in terms of what businesses do, man, you just got to jump into it. You can't, I think, just like we saw in the previous segment, you can't be afraid. You have to embrace it. You have to jump into it. You're going to make some mistakes, but I think if you approach it with authenticity and you're just trying to be your natural self, tell a story from a standpoint of being authentic to your brand and who you are as a brand, you'll be okay. Even if it's not always received, you'll be okay.
Right. Good stuff. Good stuff. This one's to Dave. Dave, US users in 2020 spent 20 minutes on average on TikTok and just 16 minutes on Facebook. Should marketers spend more time on TikTok, learning TikTok, obviously depending on the demographic you're hitting, than on Facebook or Instagram? Instagram's numbers are actually dire. They're about 6 minutes as compared to Facebook 16 and TikTok's 20.
I think you hit it on the head there, right? It really depends on the demographic you're going after and what makes sense. I like to think of it as one. You gotta figure out the equation, right? Where is your audience? Who are they, and what do they respond to? What is the personality of your business, right? Like, because each social platform kind of has its own quirks, its own personality, and things that work on those platforms. And you have to ask yourself, like, does what I'm going to do here fit with what the personality of my business is and the personality of this platform, coupled with, is my audience there, and can I have an authentic way, as Chris is saying, to connect with them? And I think the biggest thing is with any of this is really spending time and understanding how those platforms work and what those personalities are, so you don't jump in and, again, try to be that person jumping in and just interrupting people, right? You want to be part of the ecosystem. You want to be part of the community that's there. And I think if you can find a way for yourself to add value to that community on whatever the platform is, then yes, that makes sense for you to go to be there. And I think, as with anything, those are the numbers, writ large. You have to really, again, look at your data and see what's happening and see what the opportunities are for your particular business and what that means for you. Because, like, I think business A, it's TikTok. Business B, it's Facebook, right? I think it just really depends on the nature of that. So you got to look at all of it, I think.
Okay, so just wrapping things up. Thank you, Dave. Again, I'm just going to pull you right back again. I hear constant contact is taking e-commerce in full force. So when you talk about e-commerce, you can't not talk about Shopify. Especially in the mid market. So what should merchants expect from constant contact in the world of Shopify and e-commerce?
Yeah, so I mean, I think from our perspective, obviously a platform like Shopify is amazing because it gives small businesses and anybody really the ability to get up quickly, set up quickly, and sell. Right. And I think that's important, particularly, a year we've had in 2020 and lots of businesses pivoting and being able to do that. Right. It's quickly, easy, and able to do that. And I think what we're excited about is what Shopify offers people, so that way we can couple that information and that data and work closely with them to make it easy for people to use email, which we know is a powerful tool for e-commerce and any business really, to be able to pull in their products, pull in product recommendations, make all of that process easier, and use the data that's available to them in a way that they probably haven't been able to uncover before. And that's what I'm excited about with a tool like Constant Contact and Shopify working together.
I'm looking forward to it for sure. Very, very looking forward to it for sure. So Chris, from a Shopify platform standpoint, what are you expecting, and what do you see from companies such as Constant Contact, making this shift towards not just Shopify but towards e-commerce, this focus, having this roadmap, to AI and segmentation and predictive analytics, on with deep Shopify integration is huge. What are your thoughts from a Shopify standpoint?
I see small business entrepreneurship, and it's a community, and collaboration is always greater than competition. We're all kind of in this together. Our purpose for existing has always been to make commerce better for everyone, and anyone that's really out there, doesn't matter what vertical they're in, but that's actively trying to help small businesses and entrepreneurs get better and succeed. They're challenging us to grow as well as platforms, but we're all kind of trying to achieve the same goal and help the same people. So it's really a win for all of us. They win, we win, everybody wins. It's a, rising tides raises all ships, right? I mean, that's kind of where it's at.
Indeed. And we'll end this talk about the future of e-commerce marketing with one question, which is, what is the future of marketing in e-commerce? I'll start out with you, Dave.
I think I'll just recall something I've been kind of saying throughout this panel discussion is that, I think the secret's always been in e-commerce in particular, getting the right messages to the right people at the right time. And I think it's evolving to that. How do I get the right message to the right person at the right time? With the help of course, AI, predictive analytics, and automation to really make that seamless for you. And I think that's where things are going.
Brilliant. And Chris?
I think he's right on the money. I mean, omnichannel is here to stay, creating rich brand experience at each touch point, being ready to sell anywhere and everywhere. It's winning hearts and minds. Simply dropping, a picture in front of the right person on a channel isn't going to be quite good enough anymore. The game's been elevated. It's going to be the right image at the right time, at the right picture, at the right person to tell the right story. All these things have to kind of click. All these boxes have to be ticked. And throughout that journey, things are going to have to resonate in a way they didn't have to before. You're going to have to engage with customers and your audience in a way you didn't have to before. And people are going to be aware of multi-channel. They're going to be using different channels throughout the journey that maybe they didn't use before. And I think business owners need to be aware that it's not going to be a single channel anymore. It's not going to just be an Instagram customer.
Absolutely. Omnichannel marketing. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you, Dave, for being part of our expert panel. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you both. Cheers.
Wow.
Thanks so much.
Awesome. Amazing. And Kunle, where can we learn more about you? Since we need to get the Kunle plug in here. I love your podcast, by the way. I listen to everything.
Thank you. Just head over to 2x e-commerce, sign up to our email list, and listen to the podcast. Go to your favorite podcasting app, search for 2x e-commerce, or just search for Kunle. You should find me there. Yeah. And enjoy the content we put out. Enjoy.
Yeah, thank you so much for continuing to push that out. And thank you all for such an amazing panel. This was awesome. And we are looking towards that future and trying to figure out how to get there. I talk to brands all the time that are still single channel. So I really hope that this hammers home the point that they need to be thinking about an omni-channel experience and thinking about new social tactics, as well as, like you said, the predictive analytics and AI side of things. So thank you all so much. We're going to move right into the next session, which we don't have to go very far for because it's with Chris. We're going to change the topic for the next couple of sessions to conversational commerce. Kunle, Dave, saying goodbye to you.
Bye.
See you guys later.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.